welcome to Mondo Street Presents. Tonight I am talking to DANAMA, singer-songwriter. Right up my street, the kind of music, the vibe, the feel. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's we might as well be brutally honest here and say this is the second time we've recorded this because I had some technical issues. I do believe in transparency, you know.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I would hate to think that somebody found out and said, "Oh, this feels doctored," or "This is fake news." So tell me a little bit about yourself. You know, the first thing that everybody is going to ask you, I'm sure, and no doubt you've been asked 1,000 times, but where does the name Danama come from?
So Danama is basically like the name for the voice in my head that kind of tells me some negative things from time to time. I once heard like one of my favorite singers say that in order to sort of like come over those thoughts and things like that, you should give it a name. Um, and yeah, my middle name is Amanda, and that felt like too nice, too, sweet, and just
Yeah.
not the right vibe. So yeah, I kind of switched it up, and Danama came about. So to be honest, I've always sort of played music, whether it be like guitar or like just little bits and bobs singing here and there. Um, it I never actually thought of it as anything sort of serious. It was just something along the sidelines. And then, long story short, my mum actually heard me singing a song once and was like, "Oh, that's really good. You should like perform it at our school's music show thing." And yeah, and I did. And it was funny though, because when she asked me to re-sing it for her, she had to go like all the way downstairs, had to like close all the doors. I was like, "You can't be anywhere near me." Um, yeah, and then I done it at the school event, and it was the first time I'd sort of experienced like a feeling like that, and like hearing people clap and say it was really good and everything like that. I was like, "Oh, okay, like I like this feeling." Um, it was awful, like compared to now, it was like so awful, but it was sort of how it all originally started. Yeah, and then kind of from there just kept on writing. Again, they just started to get better and better, and then eventually I started to feel comfortable with my writing and how I do things and what I want to write about, and it kind of all fell into place that way, kind of thing, really. Yeah.
Every creative mind has doubts. They're always critical of themselves because
Yeah,
that they've got heroes or inspirations that they aspire to be.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
and you're always going to be critical, saying, "Oh, that's not as good as," or
Yeah.
"So and so wouldn't sing that." But getting that buzz from your first performance is really
Mm,
a great way of starting to push forward. So,
yeah.
was Danama always there, or did Danama, the voice, not the name,
Mm.
did that voice, was that before then, and you fought it for that first performance, or did that come along later in your life?
I think it's definitely been there.
Yeah.
Like I've never, had any awful situation happen. Like I've never had any like trauma or,
Mhm.
any sort of reasoning for having those thoughts or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think it is just purely like I was raised in a generation where social media is a big thing, and from a young age growing up with social media, it is almost saying like from, I don't know, 8, 9 years old, you now compare yourself to everything you see online. So I think I think subconsciously I never, it definitely came about a lot later that I was aware of it, and that I was like, I'm struggling to balance things out and to see where I'm going with my life. But I think it's always been there. Even like before I started music, playing football and things like that, I think it was always there that you're like, oh, maybe you shouldn't go for that shot because you might miss, or you might not be strong enough, you might not be good enough to get it. I think it just became more of a thing that I was aware of once I started writing. And I think because I was then like, no, this is definitely what I want to do. I love doing this. Like, this is fun. It was like, hang on a minute, but are you good enough? Like, and that's sort of when I started to know.
When you say playing football, it's not just having a kick about with your mates, is it? You play consistently and to a good
Yeah.
level. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, so I used to play for like Crystal Palace.
Right.
I used to
Nice.
play for Kent. I went for
Yeah.
like England trials. I got through to the reserve. So it was something that it was a line that I could 100% go down
Yeah,
if
yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted to and if I was committed to. By
Mm,
that point, I'd already started writing music. I'd decided that football wasn't the route I want to go down.
sure.
I still continued with those teams and went for trials for England and people like that.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think it was at the point where I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do.
yeah,
Um, so I think even then, like the thoughts of in the back of my head, because I knew I didn't want to commit to this. I didn't want to, I don't know, maybe even take a place in a team that someone else also wants and would go further
yeah,
with,
yeah,
because I didn't want to necessarily go further. Um, I mean, it's very easy now. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, oh, should I have gone for that? Like, there's a good few girls that I used to play with that are now playing for England. So
yeah,
it
yeah.
was kind of like it was all lined up. I just needed to put that effort in.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, it wasn't just a kickabout in the park. It was a serious
yeah.
sort of decision and route to go down if I wanted
But you were
to.
so definitive in your decision, and you know, footballers, they always say that they have a limited shelf life, don't they? You know,
Yeah,
your body can only play top class competitive football for so
a
long.
100%. Yeah,
Whereas, as we see every day, musicians live forever, and so,
yeah.
some of them don't know when to stop.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Elton John, I'm pointing at you after the video I saw of him singing with Chapel Roan this morning. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, maybe it's
yeah,
time.
maybe it's time, Elton. Yeah. So we'll do an embarrassing question now because I
Go
do them
for
every
it.
now and again. First song you ever wrote?
Um, I think it was called Only You. Um,
Okay.
that's the first one I ever sort of sat down with a laptop and done some production to as well.
Yeah.
Again, it is one that we avoid talking about too much because, it was questionable. Um, but yeah, I think I would
Yeah.
say that was like that's the first one that sort of comes to mind as
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is the start of my journey. This is the first sort of song I'm writing.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, it's interesting.
We're not going to see a refreshed version of it anytime soon.
I don't think so, no. I think that one's gone.
Oh, come on! It could be like the bonus track
I
on the
mean,
B side
who
of the album.
knows? Who
Yeah,
knows? Maybe
yeah.
one day I'll get the project back up and just have a little look at it. But yeah,
Never knock the early stuff. Sometimes you can revisit it and revamp it
yeah,
and create something new out of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
So, looking at your family, then,
Mm.
is there anybody within your family? This is the nature or nurture question I ask everybody. Do you think you were born a musician, or do you think you were raised a musician?
Um, it's interesting because my granddad has been in like the opera for pretty much his whole life.
Nice.
Um, he done Phantom of the Opera and shows like that. So he's done theatre, he's done big shows. Um, my parents have both played instruments,
Yeah.
never to like, a serious level or anything,
Hmm.
but growing up, they've always learned an instrument and things like
Yeah.
that. Same with me and my sister.
Yeah.
Um, I think my parents were also in the mindset that it's an extra talent, it's an
Mm.
extra something that you never know what might come of it. I originally started playing classical guitar
Okay.
until I was like, I don't know, maybe 13 or something,
Okay. Yeah.
14.
Yeah.
And I was like, this isn't cool anymore. Like, I need to change this up a bit. But I think I do wonder if I hadn't played classical guitar and if I hadn't grown up learning an instrument,
Hmm.
would I have had that musical influence to be like, okay, let's change
Yeah.
this up and
Yeah.
try something a bit more popular?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I do think that I've definitely grown up with musical influences from
Hmm.
family,
Yeah.
but it was never sort of something pressured that was like, oh, you should try this, you should try this,
Hmm.
you've got a bit of a good voice. It was kind of like I said earlier with the music show, it
Yeah.
was if you want to do it, I think you're good enough, I think you should,
Hmm.
but it was never, oh yeah, you can sing, go do this. It was kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
do what you want, if you want to go for it.
Mm. And I think
Yeah.
if you were playing in your formative years up to 13, you you may well have felt that the guitar or whatever instrument somebody
Mm.
learns is a layer of comfort. It's something that takes your
Yeah.
mind away from, and at 13 you got all your hormones and life is
Yeah.
a changing for you. But having that something else that just takes you one step away from
Yeah.
that can be incredibly calming.
100%. I mean, I'd done like the school's music shows before, but I'd done it playing classical guitar.
Right.
So I'd done performances.
Hmm.
I was to a certain extent used to seeing a crowd in front of me. I would still be nervous. Like I remember when I was that young being a bit shaky before playing classical guitar as well. I think that
Sure.
there's a little bit less room to hide in
Hmm.
classical guitar. Um, but when it then came to performing and singing, there was still the nerves. Obviously, it was
Yeah.
still something new, but I'd still already done a performance.
Hmm.
I was kind of used to that ballpark kind of
Yeah.
vibe,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think yeah, it was a catch-22. There was definitely some nerves for that first one,
I can imagine.
but there was part of me that still felt comfortable.
Yeah.
Um, so it was kind of a nice way going into it. Nothing felt pressured.
Yeah.
It was everything just kind of felt, we think you're good enough. Why don't you give it a go?
Cool.
And then yeah, from there it was just
Mhm.
the thing to do,
Yeah,
really.
I love the phrase "there's less room to hide" in classical music 'cause it's all about
Mm,
precision.
yeah,
Whereas more popular music, not as in it's more popular than classic, but it's more relaxed than
yeah,
classical music.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of room to hide in there because you've got more instruments, you've got
100%.
performance at times is as important as music.
Yeah.
Yeah,
With classical, it's almost like it's very easy to have the music in front of you, have your guitar, and you can just look at the music because you're
yeah,
obviously reading
yeah,
it. So it's, people will be less, I don't know, maybe even just aware of you're
mm,
kind of avoiding them.
yeah,
When you
yeah,
then
yeah,
do a performance, like you say, like you've got to perform, you've got to have that eye contact and
yeah.
sort of involve the crowd and everything. So it
You've got
is,
to engage. I've seen a couple
yeah,
of bands where the singer has not engaged with the crowd,
mm,
and whilst they're performing the songs, it's all very good, but
yeah,
then it's really awkward in between the songs.
yeah. No, you don't want that.
And that's where you want
Definitely
the
don't want that.
personality.
100%.
I know you can sing, but show me who you are so
Yeah,
I can love you a bit more or
exactly. People want to
dislike you
like,
or whatever.
yeah, people want to invest in you as an artist, not
Yeah.
just like the music.
Yeah,
So yeah, if
definitely.
you're kind of like, thank you, and then just
Yeah.
silence,
Yeah.
people are like,
Talk.
yeah, yeah, and that's it. It's like, what are you doing? You
Yeah,
know?
it really
But
is awkward because you get that 30, 40 seconds while everyone else is going E. Sing something,
exactly.
would you? B.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%, 100%. Yeah.
Okay, so you've had a great run at football, you've had a great
Mm,
run at classical music, you've written Only You. Oh, what
yeah.
then? Is there a moment where you go, I know I'm off football. We've had the moment where you say music is for me, but what was the moment where you said I'm actually going to sit down and start writing songs?
To be honest, I think I really, really spent time writing music when I went to university.
Ah, right,
Um,
okay.
so I done bits and bobs during like school years, during sixth
Mm,
form. Um, I went on like a lot of music tours with sixth form and things like that. But I really think that when I went to university, I actually sat down and started
mm,
writing music and sort of thinking about what I want to write and
right.
what I want to essentially tell people and spread, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I think it was a build up of a lot of emotions when I first started writing. Um, I still hadn't quite come to that realization of what I wanted to write about.
Okay.
I tried to go down the poppier route, writing weird poppy songs that just did not fit, just didn't
Mm,
feel right.
yeah.
Um, when I look back to like performances at uni, I can see like the music that I'm singing, it's not it's not connecting with me. It's not
Yeah.
resonating with me. So
Mhm.
yeah, it definitely took a while to kind of figure out my sound and
Mm,
what I actually wanted to talk about. Um, and really that actually came out probably after lockdown.
Ah, right.
when I first started writing as Danama.
Yeah. Yeah.
um I would write sort of like, honestly, like hundreds and hundreds of songs, and
Yeah.
half of them I was like absolute awful, just
Yeah.
not the right
No.
vibe, not, yeah, never look
No.
at that again. And then there were others that, didn't quite make the cut.
Yeah.
But like you were saying earlier, I wouldn't disregard. I'd definitely go back
Mm.
and look at it, see if I
Yeah.
can rework it, reword some things,
Mm.
see if it works. And then there were other things or other songs that I would stop and listen to and be like, oh, that's good. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I want.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think it was a long process.
Mm.
And even now, I feel like now I'm finally at a point that when I write music, I know what I'm writing. I know how I
Mm.
want the song to go, and like what I
Yeah.
want to give to people. So
Mm.
yeah, it's been a long process, but I think it's definitely been worth it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listening to your music, you've not been scared of changing your style slightly.
Mm,
And I think one of the things that I noticed when you talk about your earlier work, it seemed that you were more influenced by the environment, and it might have been being
mm,
at uni or trying to be something that didn't actually fit, because a lot of
yeah.
your songs are these beautiful conversations, sometimes with yourself,
Yeah,
or sometimes
100%.
directed to somebody, to apologize or to blame,
Yeah.
point a finger at times. But that's where you seem to sit so beautifully there in that conversational type song,
Yeah.
which is it's an art form, that, because so many people try it and fail.
Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's really, really good.
Thank you for that though. Thank
Yeah.
you.
You wrote them, I didn't.
True, true. But to be fair, I think coming like from an artist point of
Yeah.
view, you almost don't always realize that. It's like
Mm.
it's like what you were saying earlier, you write a song or you hear a song and you're like, "Oh, my favorite artist might not say it like this. They might not
Yes.
phrase it like that." And it is so easy to compare what you're writing to your influences. Um
Oh, yeah.
and then I think you just fall into like a little rabbit hole, and it's then hard to find your sound again. So it is nice to hear that it is coming across the way I want it to come across,
Oh,
and it's
definitely. Yeah, I think that would hard to dispute that.
mm,
It's very evident. You can listen to artists who they've refined their songwriting technique,
yeah,
and they've gone, I do one, two, three, then one, two, three, then one, two, three. And
yeah,
that's not in your work, because your work is very much, as I see it, it's around the message in the song,
yeah,
and
definitely,
everything
definitely,
fits around the message. And that, for me, I prefer artists who have something to say, not necessarily, free, I don't know, free Kellogg's in a box or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
Silly example. But and if it is just a plea to yourself to be more kind to yourself, or
yeah, definitely.
I prefer a message in the song, and I think
Mm,
that's what you've captured and pretty well mastered now. And
yeah,
I
thank
think it's a
you,
great thing. So so
thank you.
so as you're writing this, you're writing as a solo artist,
Mm-hmm.
and then you dip your toe into, let's have some other musicians with me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, basically. So I have like a small little handful of musicians that I'll go to.
Yeah.
And especially sort of drum wise, I'll always have like a reference
Yeah.
of an idea of drums to give, just to give the vibe of the song.
Hmm.
And then yeah, basically I'll just send it off to the drummer, send it off to another guitarist who can add some extra layers.
Yeah.
And then yeah, when they send it back, I'll be like, perfect, or can we
Yeah.
try this? Can we try
Yeah.
that? And yeah, and then that's
Mm.
basically like the way I'll fit those parts into my song.
Okay.
I'll kind of write the song as a whole on my own, um, add in all my parts, go record it and everything, and then yeah, send it off to them to kind of finalize the song. Pretty
Mm.
much, yeah.
Was it a simple process of adjusting to allow people to contribute to what you'd created? You've got a baby and you say, well, yes, can I dress your baby? Oh, go on then. Oh, I don't like the way that's
Yeah,
dressed. You've got to acclimatize that. You've got to acclimatize to
a
letting
hundred
go a
percent.
little bit, but then you've got to have the confidence and authority to say, no, I don't like that.
Yeah, I think I'm quite lucky with my two main like my guitarist and my drummer that I mainly work with, I'm quite lucky in that before they recorded on some of my songs, we performed together. So I
Right.
kind of got a vibe of, you know, how they played, what they would add to the song. So it gave me that bit more freedom, and I was a bit more relaxed to be like, cool, you do your thing.
Sure.
I do think there is part of it, you are 100% right. It's hard to sort of let someone else mess with your song. There have been a couple of times that, yeah, I will turn around and be like, I love what you've done. I think we can use this version as like maybe an acoustic version or
Yeah.
a slightly an alternative version, but
Yeah.
can we try this? So I think it's definitely something that you're like, oh, I feel bad asking them to change it or this or that. But without it sounding big-headed, I think at the end of the day, you've got to remind yourself, like, this is my song. So, you
Totally.
know, like, I want it to come across a certain way.
Yeah.
So I want them to play that certain way, you know? So I think it's sometimes a little bit hard, but you've just got to go with it, you know? And you've
Yeah.
just got to, yeah, just own it really and just take control of it. Yeah.
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 Get you, big boss, eh?
Exactly. Exactly. That's what we like.
That's what we like. So, what then? You've got a new single coming out soon.
Yes, so I've
Yeah,
got a new single coming out in, let's say, a couple of months.
couple of months. Yeah,
Um so I'm quite excited for that, to be fair.
yeah.
I'm going to be performing it for the first time at a festival in May, so that's going to be exciting.
Oh,
Funnily enough, we're actually going to be performing another unreleased song
nice.
that, again, I'm like, I need that one to come out as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It is so hard, like with the one that's coming out soon. It's called Mend My Soul.
Mhm.
And because I've been promoting it and I've sat with that song for quite a while
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
it's like it's weird. It's almost bad to say, but I almost feel more excited for the other song because it's newer. It's like more fresh. Like I
yeah,
haven't had it for as long. So I'm like, oh,
yeah,
this one's exciting. But
yeah,
obviously, two other people, they've not heard Mend My Soul yet.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so it's a weird thing to kind of get your head around as an artist, like releasing music.
yeah.
It's like I've sat with this song for quite a while now, and you're almost like, oh, people must be sick of it. Like I've had it for this long, and it's like they haven't even heard it yet. Like, so how can they be sick of it? You know? So yeah, it's quite a writing songs is quite a hard thing to get your head around, you know. I
Yeah,
could write one tomorrow and be like, "Oh my God, that needs to come out now."
yeah, yeah,
But you've just got to time it and wait, you know. So
yeah. It's
I'm
funny.
still excited.
Yeah,
Still
it's
very
funny.
excited.
I always think that musicians must get bored playing the same song all the time.
Do you know what? I think having a good kind of range of songs for a set list is really helpful.
Mm,
Um, I'm I'm pretty much for the next few gigs, I'm pretty much doing a similar set list, but I've now altered the way the songs sound.
all
So
right. Okay.
it's basically like playing a bit of a new song.
Mm,
And to be honest, I actually think unless you're literally performing the exact same songs like every single day, I think performing it, you always slightly change things up. You always sing it a slightly different way,
mm,
or, you know, the vibe changes each time. You'll still have that sort of, you know, basic vibe that you're going for, but
yeah.
I think things change each time. So
Yeah.
I can't say that I've got sick of playing a song yet.
No,
So
no,
I
no.
think it's you also have a different crowd each time. People vibe with things differently or
Mm,
different songs. So I think yeah, it just changes it up each time. It feels like you're playing it to a new crowd and
mm.
they react to it certain ways and
Yeah, because
yeah.
that's where we talk about that relationship between the artist and the crowd,
Mm,
how they reflect your song back to you,
yeah.
changes the atmosphere in the room, changes your performance,
Yeah,
gives you
exactly.
all of that. Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
cool. That.
I mean, there's certain songs that I will find it hard to like look at people in the crowd.
All right.
Like,
Yeah.
so for example, like one of my songs, The Ending,
Mhm.
it's like it's a real release of emotion when you perform it.
Mhm.
And there are times like I've looked at people in the crowd and they're crying. I'm like, I cannot look at you right now
Ooh.
because I will start to cry. And like, obviously, that song has a very specific meaning to me. So
Yeah,
seeing someone else like essentially get emotional over it, I'm like, don't look at me right now. Like, get through the song and then we can get
yeah,
back to interacting a bit more, you know? So
yeah.
yeah, I think it's a bit of a balance as well.
Mm.
Like,
And that's funny because when you're writing from your experience and your
mm,
perception of life, and
yeah,
sometimes we think that the danamas or the voices in our head, we're alone with that. But if somebody
yeah,
connects to a song in the same way that you did, are they
yeah,
having the same thing that you've had? And
exactly.
that
Yeah,
just shows how similar we all are in the world, that
yeah,
irrespective of color, race, creed, gender, orientation, anything like that, we all
mm,
have a little Dhanama. We, we,
100%.
we all have these doubts, these loves, these laughters,
Yeah,
and it is a lot of time it is the art that helps us identify that between two people.
100%. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
for sure. And I think that's almost what has helped influence like the next few songs that I've got coming out.
yeah, yeah.
Is like essentially having people say to me like, oh, I found you through this song, I really
Mm,
like resonated with that song.
yeah.
Like I might not even tell them, you know, what this song specifically means to me and like
Hmm.
why I wrote it. I'll give like the broad picture of who Danama is
Yeah.
and what the song's about, but like it's also the fact that they can resonate with a song
Mm,
without even having to know what it means to me. Like it can
yeah.
mean whatever it wants to them.
That's powerful, that.
And yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that's really nice. And I think that has definitely influenced like where I want to go with my music.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, it is a nice thing to experience for sure.
It's a spiritual connection with
Yeah,
a catchy hook at the same time.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
What more could you ask from life? A catchy hook and a
Exactly.
spiritual connection. Go see Danama now.
Perfect.
There you go. You put that on top of the website.
Exactly.
So, what kind of artists influence you then? You know, we talked about aspiring to be. You know,
Mm.
who when you were growing up or now do you listen to and think is really good?
So two artists that I've always listened to are Imagine Dragons and 21 Pilots.
Yeah.
Um, which funnily enough, I was having a conversation with my mum the other day and we were saying like a lot of my music, sometimes it is quite wordy and quite like, you know, I just naturally go to try and fit it almost sounds bad, but as much as I can in like a sentence sometimes, you know,
Yeah,
and
there's a
I
couple of
like
yeah. Go
yeah.
on, sorry, sorry.
No, 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 don't be, don't be. And yeah, there are a few where there are certain songs even that I'm writing where I'm like, this is a cool part. Let's like try and shove this whole section in there and I'll just try and find big words or play with words and
Yeah,
like play with phrases. And I was like, I don't know why I do it.
yeah.
It just happens. And then we started listening to Imagine Dragons in the car, and
Mm.
we were sitting there and we was like, oh, like they're really wordy. Like they have a lot of things going on,
Yeah,
especially vocally.
yeah,
And we was kind of sitting there and was like, I've listened to them for like as long as I can remember. And I was like, well, like there's one of the reasons. Like I've grown up listening to 21 Pilots as well, like two artists who do a lot with their vocals and their
mm,
lyrics.
yeah.
So it was almost subconsciously, I never realized like that was the influence as to why I do that.
Mm,
Um, and it was almost hard with the ending, for example, like I tried to strip back from that and make it like really simple and really just basic.
yeah.
So those two are definitely two that have been major influences.
Mhm.
Paramore is a recent one,
Yeah.
more sort of since lockdown. Sort of after lockdown, they became someone that I started listening to
Mm.
and got compared to a few times, and I was kind of like, okay, like these people these are quite cool, you know. Like
Yeah,
I'm loving
it's
Paramore, so
there's no concern about being compared to them at all, is there?
thank thank you. It's funny though because when I first started writing like the songs that I've got out now,
Mm,
I didn't listen to them. So then when I think it was Come Alive, someone said to me like, "Oh, you really sound like Paramore," and I was like, okay, cool. Like
Yeah,
I don't know if that's a compliment or not.
yeah.
And then I started listening to them. I was like, oh, oh, this is, I like this. This is a,
There's a lot of conversational songs in their catalog. There's a lot
yeah,
of that me to you, you to me.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of that. She writes in that style, which is very similar to
Yeah.
yours.
Yeah,
So that's
definitely.
where you'll find that sympathy, but sympathy.
Y-
I won't use a big word. That's where you can feel that join between the two of you.
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
it's definitely a cool artist to be compared to for
Oh,
sure.
definitely. But
100%.
talking about getting lots of words into a sentence, Springsteen's done it. He's been
Yeah.
accused of being too wordy.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with being compared to him.
Yeah.
And the Manic Street Preachers,
Oh, okay.
they are very
Okay,
wordy at
yeah.
times.
Yeah.
They are too wordy for their own good sometimes.
Oh, really?
But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's the thing, is getting the balance. Like you want people to still understand what you're saying and know what you're saying. I
mm,
think sometimes, yeah, when it is kind of everything's blurred into one, you
yeah,
are kind you do kind of lose that connection a bit because
yeah,
people don't really get what you're saying then. So I
mm,
think it is getting a bit of a balance with that for sure.
yeah. And it's careful production as well. It's not having
Yeah.
something, if the music is massively dynamic and lots of movement in it, and then you're adding lots of words into that,
Yeah.
that can
That might be a bit
get a bit
too
prog
much.
rock. Yeah, a bit prog
Yeah.
rock, and you're expecting somebody to come and twinkle the ivories at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
think you've managed to master that art of sprinkling the lyrics across, which is
Thank you.
again.
Yeah.
So, if you could have written any song, which one would you choose? It's an impossible question, I
It is
know.
an impossible
It's
question.
unfair and horrible and all that, but it always gets people.
It does. I mean, I'm not surprised because like if I even just try, even if I'm just trying to think of like Paramore, 21 Pilots, and Imagine Dragons, I'm like,
Yeah,
I can give you
that
like
one.
albums. If I could
Yeah,
give you like basically all of their albums, but
yeah.
to be honest, I think one song that whenever I listen to it, like I could be, oh no, now there's two songs. Oh no, because I had an answer and then that's
And then
just
it's three.
completely changed. Yeah.
Yeah. Or
We'll stick.
give us both. Give us both, and
Okay.
I'll let you have two.
So to be fair, the second one, I don't, I'm 99% sure he didn't write it, but
Okay.
it's just one song that if I could have written it, I would have. But the
Yeah.
first one would be it is Imagine Dragons.
Yeah.
It's called Whatever It Takes.
Okay.
It's one of those songs that like I'll listen to and it just switches my mind. It is
Mm,
like, yeah, I can do this. Like, it
nice.
just puts you in such like a positive
Yeah.
mindset.
Yeah.
Does kind of make you feel like you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Um, the second one, I don't actually know who originally wrote it, but it's
Okay.
actually Michael Bublé sings it, and
Okay.
it's his one that he sings called "Feeling Good."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I could be in any mood
Mm,
whatsoever, and I put that song on, and like everything about it, about his version, just makes me feel like so happy, like just
yeah.
so. It's so hard to even describe, like even the
Mm,
orchestra, everything, it just all fits perfectly. And
yeah.
if I could have written that arrangement
Mhm,
and sung that song, like that would, yeah,
yeah.
I just love
But
that one so
box
much.
ticked. I'm done. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't need to do anything else.
And I'll spring a new question on you, which I've never asked anybody before.
Oh, okay.
If you were asked to recommend an album to somebody, what album would you choose out of your collection, out of all those things that you've listened to over your life, say? And it
Mm,
might be this would introduce you to a new artist, or
mm.
you don't need to know anything about them. This is just a great album. Is there an album that you'd go, that's good?
Ooh. Um, oh, that's tricky. I mean, it's hard because I think there are certain albums that like there are certain songs on certain albums that I'm like, oh, it's not my favorite, but
Yeah.
for the album it fits really well.
Mhm.
Um, do you know what? In all honesty, I would probably have to say it's a 21 Pilots album. It's called Trench.
Okay.
It's there are certain songs in there that I think again, this is the issue with when I listen to music. So at the moment, if you can't tell, I'm listening to 21 Pilots, Imagine Dragons, and Paramore, and that's like it.
Yeah.
Like that will be it for like the next like 4 months.
Yeah.
And then after that, I'll probably find another artist and then get stuck on them for a good few months. And so sometimes it is funny, like when it comes to questions like these, my mind will just go straight to like
Yeah.
the
It's
three
understandable.
artists that I'm on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would definitely say that album is, I think that changed a few things for me. It changed sort of the way that I looked at music and the way I wanted to hear and write music.
Yeah.
It was very kind of, or it is very story based, and everything follows in a specific order and works in a specific way.
Nice.
And I just think everything had its place. And I think for me, when writing music, that's something that I subconsciously think about. It's even like, when in my story does this fit in? You know, it's even like if I don't know, say I was just feeling really low one day and wrote like a really, really sad song or something, I will then look at what I have already out, what I have coming out, and the plan that I've got, and be like, does this fit in it? It could be like a really amazing song, but, you know, does it fit in it in 2 years' time? Or is it something that actually that would have fitted in like 3 months ago? Or I don't know. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah.
It's something that it's probably the more boring side of writing music, but it's definitely something that when I look at releasing music, I'm like, how does this next song fit into my storyline and what I want to say? And I think that album almost was the start of that, and made me think about, you know, sometimes you can't have like banger after banger after banger. You need to also give sometimes people something that is maybe not your strongest song, but like the message or the way it fits in your songs really, really influences and impacts your music. So
Totally right.
yeah,
Totally
I mean,
right.
if you haven't listened to that album, I mean, I still personally think like with them, you need to kind of listen through all the albums to really understand the storyline. But I definitely think that is an album that I'm like, go listen to it. And I personally think it would change, even not massively, just slightly, the way you might view music and view what you're currently listening to, maybe.
Awesome.
Who knows?
And that's the whole point of recommendation, isn't it? The whole point of
Exactly.
recommendation is, this worked for me, I think it will work for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Brilliant. Mine would always, if somebody asked me, I'd say, never mind the bollocks by the Sex Pistols. I'm nowhere near as subtle or as refined as you are.
That's brilliant. I love that.
So we've had your journey through music. We've had the change from football. What's your relationship with DANAMA like now?
It's definitely a lot better,
Yeah.
for sure. It has improved a lot. I think I mean, the thing is you'll never like completely get rid of those voices. I think now, when I have those thoughts, it's more, the relationship is more, okay, I thought that, what can I do to improve my situation, or get slightly bigger or get further in my career? You know, I think it has now turned into like a bit of a positive. You know, like those thoughts might come in and it boosts me forward. It makes me work harder rather than drawing me back and being like, oh yeah, you're right, like I shouldn't do this. So it's definitely a lot better. I think, like, I mean, I don't know, maybe since lockdown, for the past like 4 or 5 years, I've really like tried to work on like meditating, like having positive affirmations in anything as well. I mean, like even going to work, obviously there's always days that you do not want to go. And I think even with things like that is such a normal thing, that like there are always days you don't want to do what you have to do. And even just using that thought and switching it and being like, okay, but this job will earn me money to fund my music, and I can go and do this and this. And it's just, it's definitely become a lot better. My mindset has, what's the word to say, it's become more natural now to flip it into, hang on a minute, like I said, you can earn money from this to fund your music,
Yeah.
rather than being like, but I want to be doing music. I don't want to be working this job. You know, it's really become, I'd say, a much healthier relationship
Yeah.
now.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
for sure.
it's good because it's a heck of a journey to have
Mm,
that voice in your head, which is causing self doubt or questioning your
yeah,
ability, your performance, your appearance, your anything in your life. It's
100%.
really difficult to have that.
Yeah.
And if you are fortunate enough to actually get a more positive relationship with that, because
Mm,
the voices don't go away.
no, exactly.
It's part of you. It's just the other side of you going. Are you sure?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think that's the thing. It took a while to understand that,
Yeah.
and to be like, you're never going to get rid of it,
Mm.
and that is normal. Like, no one out there never ever has those thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's just now, okay, what can we do to have a better relationship with those
Yeah.
thoughts and use those thoughts in another way?
Yeah.
And it's why, like, to be honest, if I wasn't doing music, I 100% would like avoid social media. It's just,
Mm.
unfortunately, nowadays, like, you know, social media is such a big thing for up and coming artists that
Yeah.
it would almost detriment my career if I didn't
Mm.
use
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think social media is such a hard platform. It's such a toxic platform. Like,
I think the problem is that most people are fighting against an algorithm,
yeah,
which is trying to display the lowest common denominator at all times, as opposed to the
exactly.
finest quality. I was going to ask you because
Yeah.
last time we spoke, you mentioned that you went to Australia and had a bit of an issue with your phone.
Yes, so yeah, so basically for 3/4 of January, I went out to Australia, and I went with my sister, and we done it so that the first few days of our holiday we went and stopped off in Hong Kong.
Hmm.
And yeah, so when I got there, I couldn't basically use social media at all. Um, I do think there that they have, like, I'm not sure if they've got a ban on TikTok, or
They had the
they just
Chinese
have.
firewall, yeah, which has
Yeah,
different approach.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah.
So I knew that, okay, like, first few days in Hong Kong probably won't be able to use it. That's fine. My plan was go to Australia,
Yeah.
have a fun holiday, but we're going to film some content,
Hmm.
promote the new single, this, that, and the other. And then, yeah, got to Australia, and again, couldn't use social media. The most I could probably do was like maybe post a story on Instagram.
All right. Yeah.
That was kind of it. TikTok was just out of the question.
Yeah.
Um, and this was probably the point where I'd really realized how far I'd come with like mental health and with my view on everything, was that when I got to Australia, I was just like, meh, I just won't go on social media. I just won't post anything. Like,
Yeah.
we'll just push the single back a month or something, and do
Yeah.
it when we get back. Like, I'm just going to enjoy my holiday.
Oh,
Um,
beautiful.
yeah, and I think that was the real first point where I'd been like, hang on a minute, like, if that was even last year, I probably would have been like, oh my God, what do I do? Like, let alone, 2, 3 years ago. So I think Australia was an amazing experience for me. I mean, obviously, the country Australia is amazing in
Yeah.
itself. I think the weather 100% helps, but it was the first proper experience I've had,
Yeah.
especially on a holiday, where I was like, I don't even want to bring my phone out with me. Like,
Wow.
I'd take it with me, just obviously in emergencies or
Mm.
anything, if need be. But I just really was like, I have no need for it. The
Yeah.
most I will do on it is like when I get Wi-Fi or something, send my parents a text,
Yeah.
or something like that. So it was the first time I think I've gone on a holiday, especially such a long holiday, and just not cared, and
Awesome.
just taken in the view and taken in their sort of environment and the
Mm.
way they live life, and actually like became part of that.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, it really, really sort of made opened my eyes to social media.
Mm.
It's even like now that I'm back, like every morning when I wake up, I'm like, I'm not touching my phone, like social media wise, for
Mm.
an hour
Good.
before bed. Like, I'm avoiding it.
Yeah.
And it makes a huge difference. And I remember I tried doing the like waking up and before bed thing before Australia, and it worked. Like I'd done it every now and then. Every now and then,
Yeah.
you know, I'd fall back into the routine. I'd check it at night or whatever. But after Australia, it just I have never felt quite such a change in the way I not even necessarily viewed things, but just the way I felt
Yeah.
and the way I wanted to feel. Like I was when I got home, I was like, I want to feel the way I felt in Australia.
Fantastic.
And essentially setting boundaries with social media has really helped that.
That's good.
Um, and yeah, like now I will try to avoid going on social media. Like I'll try and go on it once or twice a day. You know, maybe if I've posted something in a 4 or 5 hours, I might just check it or, you know, but I will really, really try to manage how I use social media. And I think that Australia was a big impact for, again, like I said earlier, like with work, like it really made me be like, okay, but if I don't go to work, I won't get paid.
Yeah.
If I go to work, I can then earn that money. I can either use that into music, like
Yep.
I want to go surfing, like,
Yeah.
you know, I can use that money for things that make me feel free, make me feel happy.
Totally.
And I think that's a big, big thing for me. And I think I owe Australia a lot, to be honest.
Yeah. What a wonderful thing that you recognize, because it's liberating to step away from
Yeah,
our confines. But the amazing, powerful thing there is that you didn't have to accept it; you wanted it.
yeah,
You know,
exactly. Yeah,
and you're more likely to write a song or be inspired to write a song by the scenery of Australia than by the loading page of Twitter or
a hundred
Instagram, aren't you?
percent,
So
a hundred percent.
you're feeding the artist as well as feeding your, without being too
Yeah,
spiritual, you're feeding your soul, the artist, your brain,
a hundred
your
percent.
body.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
that's
for
really
sure.
powerful. Yeah, well done.
Yeah,
That's really cool. I like that.
yeah.
So tell us about the next couple of months then. So we've got the new single coming out in the next couple of months.
Yes.
What's the roadmap for you leading into the summer and into the autumn?
So, to be honest, at the moment, we're kind of confirming a small lineup of gigs.
Okay.
I'm going to be looking at doing a few more headline shows.
Yeah.
The plan for this year is almost slightly like condensing the gigs. Um, I would much rather, I mean, last year when I was performing, I have a little group chat with some of my fans
Okay.
and I'd send sort of gigs to them and you know, it might fall on a day they can't do. And it almost happened. I noticed that when I was performing a lot more regularly, um, it was almost harder for people to come.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which almost it sounds like it should be the opposite, but I
Yeah.
think, you know, if they have to travel but they know, okay, I should hopefully be able to come to the next month's one. It was almost harder for people to plan around, whereas this year my plan is do maybe slightly less gigs, but you know, you can then essentially say to those fans like, right, these are the gigs I'm doing this year,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
they can work around being like, okay, there's one in 6 months' time. That's the one I'm going to be able to go to. Like
Yeah.
I can put it in the diary and they can come to it.
Yeah. Brilliant.
I think sometimes being like, oh, I've got a gig this week. I've got a gig this week. It's almost too like short notice for
Yeah.
people. So I'm almost essentially doing it in the sense of like, you know, an artist go on tour, there's the dates,
Yeah.
choose which one you're coming to.
Yeah.
That's essentially the plan for sort of this year is that
Nice.
we're condensing the gigs to almost it sounds bad, but it's almost that like FOMO kind of experience. Like, you know, if people are like, oh, that month's one I can't quite make, like I can't, you know, I can't change work or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, but then they've only got like four more. So it almost helps to, you know, yeah,
Yeah.
like helps
It's
helps to
it's good strategic planning
yeah, exactly.
and
Exactly.
good marketing as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, you know, if you let your fans know where you're going to be with lots of notice, it helps them. So everybody wins at the
Exactly.
end of the day, you know, because they want to see.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think last year I was getting like a lot of last minute gigs booked in. And I think that's where the fans would then struggle slightly with coming to them because it's like, oh, I've got a gig in 4 days, you know,
Yeah.
and you haven't got that time to plan it, or even sometimes get tickets and things like that. So I almost want to do gigs that I know the fans will be able to make.
Yeah, definitely.
So to be honest, a lot of the time, like when I have dates in mind, I will put it in the group chat with the fans now and be like, what dates work for you guys? And then when the majority of them have said a date, that's the date we'll go for.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, they're the people I want to be performing to, you know,
Yeah,
like, so
totally, totally.
might as well go for a date that I know that they're
Yeah.
going to be free for. So yeah, that's the plan this year. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. You've been a wonderful guest the second time round, as well as you were a great guest the first time round. You've done it again, knocked it out of
Thank
the
you very
park.
much.
But for anybody that wants to continue to follow DANAMA, we've got Instagram at DANAMA
Yes.
Official. We've got Facebook, DANAMA Official.
Hmm.
We've got X, formerly Twitter. Ugh, sorry, at DANAMA Official. And then is your YouTube channel, DANAMA
DANAMA
Official.
official as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. You have been a great guest. Thank you very
Thank
much
you
for
very
your time
much.
again,
Of
and
course.
enjoy the upcoming gigs and the single
Thank
release.
you. Yes. Thank you very much.
Wonderful.